All right, guys, welcome back. Dude, this is one of the coolest things ever. My kids said, Dad, this Savannah Bananas is the coolest thing ever. And I'd known about them a little bit, but why I'm so excited is I can't believe I've got a player for the Savannah Bananas that's on with us today. So, dare I call him a professional baseball player, but or professional banana ball player. It may evolve into that. But dude, we got Andy Archer with us today. I think you've got some records for the Savannah Bananas and all kinds of crazy things. So, dude, Andy, welcome to the Journey of a Christian Dad podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate, you inviting me on. I was fired up, and you've had some big time guests, much bigger than me. So I'm honored to be on here. I'm fired up, and then yeah, to your point, I don't, I'll receive the compliment of being called a professional pitcher. I never played minor leagues or anything, but the truth is, I'm getting a paycheck to do this, so I guess we can throw the professional label on.
Yeah, exactly. um, Tell us how old you are.
I just turned 27, and I
Okay.
really considered putting a hat on for this podcast because, what you're not seeing here is the hairline going back a little bit. But I'm gonna try and keep it off for as long as I can. But I'm trying to, yeah, eat healthy and hope that delays the hair decline a little bit.
Yeah, I can't help you there.
Yeah.
That's been
Oh
a
gosh,
problem with me for years.
that's hilarious. How old are you?
So,
I didn't ask you that.
oh, I'm actually 52.
Oh, so what you're saying is I need to break out the notebook and take notes because you're gonna drop some wisdom bombs on me, I hope.
I might know a few things. I might know a few things,
Oh, he's
but
humble.
coming from where you are, like this is really cool. So like I don't know that I've ever had somebody. You might set the record for the youngest guest outside of my
Wow.
daughter who
Well,
jumped
that's
on
that's an
this.
honor. That's an honor. I feel like I'm actually one of the older guys, maybe at 27. We keep bringing on younger and younger
No
dudes in
kidding.
the organization. So yeah. So thank you very much for saying that, making me feel good.
So for people that are guys, if you don't really know who the Savannah Bananas are yet, hey, it's totally cool. However, chances are your kids might. Like this is unbelievable. Seeing what they've done and how they've grown over the years. I remember watching some guy named Jesse Cole run around in a yellow tuxedo and a yellow top hat. And he's like, hey, we're going to get something going. We're going to turn this thing into fun. And me being a baseball kind of conservative or traditionalist or
Mhm.
whatever, I was like, man, I don't know about changing the rules to baseball. And then, as things go over time, you look back and you go, dude, this is so much fun. This is so cool. Like, it's okay if a fan in the stands catches the ball and that's a recorded and out. Like, you know, give up this traditional hoity-toity, base. I mean, you see guys doing the bat flips and that type thing. And,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
starting to become a little bit more accepted. And now this banana ball is a whole different game. So ABC News says uh, in Banana Ball, players break into dance and other in-game antics in a fast-paced, rowdy version of baseball designed to delight and entertain fans. CBS News says there's no crying in baseball, but there are a lot of laughs when the Savannah Bananas bring their circus antics to the ballpark. I was like, that's a pretty good description of what you've got going on with the team.
I totally agree. I think, yeah, that, I think circus really in a lot of ways is a great word to describe what we got going on. But similar to you, I considered myself like a baseball purist. I love the game of baseball. I love like, the waiting time in between, pitches that big, like anticipation, especially like later in the game in big situations. So really for me, like it took a lot of unlearning to play banana ball. But what's great about what we do is that it's completely separate from baseball. I think like there will always be baseball, and I really hope that I get to be a dad one day and that my kids play baseball because of all the lessons it taught me. But there really is a need for banana ball. I think like, for me, like I'm really motivated by like kids playing youth sports. And I remember like right when I joined the Bananas, we looked at the stats and the number of kids participating in team sports is going down. And that killed me because I
Oh,
I learned
I
so
didn't know
many
that.
lessons from baseball and just from being on a team and competing. And I was like, dude, this is insane. And so one of the I think like the greatest fruit, one of at least, is just knowing that because of what we're doing, there are kids out there who are motivated to play team sports for the first time. And I think like a lot of that is they see grown men out having the time of their lives playing this crazy game of modified baseball, like you said. So I think, yeah, I mean, I love baseball, I love banana ball, and I just really hope that what we do inspires kids to play baseball and team sports.
Yeah, I've heard other guys when I talk about banana ball and they're like, oh yeah, like the Globetrotters meets baseball. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. Like it really is. And I've seen some crazy things like the outfielder doing a backflip before he catches the ball during the game. I'm like, what in the
Yeah.
world?
Yeah, that's another thing too, is like the work that goes into it. Like for every trick play that you see on the field, it was probably missed and attempted like thousands of times in practice. And so I remember, like, I tell this story all the time. This is like just kind of one thing to put what you just said in context. Like I remember, so when I showed up for my first year in banana ball, which was 2024, I was about a week early to spring training because I wanted to meet the guys, see the facilities, get acclimated. So when it was time to start, I was ready to roll. And it's early January. It's probably like 15 or 20 degrees outside. It's freezing cold. And Ryan Cox, our starting shortstop, is out taking 500 or 600 ground balls, doing a trick play every single time in the freezing cold a week before report date. And so that was my first taste of my teammates. And so the work that goes in, like to what people see on the field, like the back end, like that work and like the training and just like the creativity is really amazing. And so I always tell that story because it gives people just that idea of like, hey, like we are putting in some serious work and dedication into what goes on the field.
So how did you well, I guess let's jump into like a cool story that I know about you. I guess high school, college, and then you got a real job and like
Yeah. Oh
take
yeah.
take it from there wherever you want to go with it. Like this is
Yeah.
this is a
So
cool transition, guys. You'll appreciate this story.
So I'll kind of start and just kind of hit on some spark note kind of key points. And try not to talk forever. If you want to interrupt, please do so. And also if I'm talking too long, please let me know. So I'll kind of pick things up when I went to college as a walk-on at Georgia Tech. And so thank goodness I had good grades. I had parents that, made sure that I was taking care of my business in the classroom. So that made me, eligible to get into Georgia Tech as a student, great school. And because I played high school baseball with the head coach's sons, he had a chance to see me play and gave me a chance to try out for his team as a walk-on. Made the team, barely pitched my freshman year. And so, that wasn't good enough for me. I really wanted to play. I didn't go to college just to sit the bench. So I just train, earned my way as a closing pitcher. And then, Tommy John struck after that and then came back
Oh,
as a weekend starting pitcher. But unfortunately, when it was time for the MLB draft, I did not hear my name called. And I remember that being like one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life. And the story kind of goes, I got a call from the Tampa Bay Rays, third day of the draft. And they're like, Andy, like, we want to pick you with this pick. Like, do you want to join the Tampa Bay Rays? I'm like, yes. Like, are you kidding me? I get to play, pro baseball as a walk-on. Like this is like the storybook, next chapter of my story. Like, of course it's gonna happen like that. And I felt like I had a good year, and it was time to go pro. So I agree to this bonus and this pick with the Tampa Bay Rays, and then the pick comes and they pick someone else, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like they just like we had this agreement. Like I told a few other teams I'm not interested because I want to go to the Rays, all this kind
no.
of stuff. And I don't mean this as any sort of
Yeah,
like
no.
slander towards the Rays at all. I'm sure that these conversations happen a lot. I probably wasn't the only player
Right,
that
right.
they
Yeah.
that they
They
told
talked
that
to a
to.
few different guys, or maybe the guy that they didn't even talk to but slipped on the board that they knew was
Right,
never gonna like, oh my
right.
gosh.
And so please, I want to add in that note
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
I'm still a Rays fan. We're going to Tampa next week, so I'm mega psyched about that. But yeah, so I'm like, I have this heartbreaking moment where I'm like, I can't believe that just happened. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do from here. And so I had just graduated from Georgia Tech. I had one extra year of eligibility because of my surgery in COVID, and I felt kind of like my time at Georgia Tech had come to an end. I had kind of, I was super grateful to play for Coach Hall. I had the greatest experience there, but I kind of had this feeling, it's hard to describe, that I knew it was time for like something new. And so when I hit the transfer portal, I got down to three schools, and just had this amazing, connection with the head coach at University of Hawaii. And so I remember like draft day, one of the coolest things that happened to me, like, so this pick, like with the Tampa Bay Rays, it comes and it goes. And I'm just sitting there in shock. I'm like, I can't even, and I'm so sad. And my grandpa, he immediately like changes the lock screen on his phone to University of Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, the logo. And that was his way of saying like, hey, like, you still got more baseball to play. Like it's not over yet. So let's turn the page and let's go Rainbow Warriors. So that was a super cool moment. But the problem with that was school was about to start at UH, grad school. And I'm like, I've got nowhere to live. I don't even think I'm going to school. And I'm trying to figure this thing out as fast as I can. So I get a hotel room for a few nights and I buy a plane ticket with nowhere to live. So I get on the plane. And at the time I was doing a cover to cover read of the Bible at the time. And I get on the plane and I'm sitting in between this woman and her daughter. And I start just reading my Bible because I'm like, all right, like, if God's going to pull me out of this situation I thought he was going to put me into, he's got to have something for me. So like, I'm like trying to distract myself, read a little bit, like try and pray. I'm like still kind of like mad or whatever. And this woman, she starts talking to me. She's like, oh, it's pretty weird that a young man would be reading his Bible. Like, what's your story? So we start talking. We talked the whole plane ride to Honolulu. And at the end of the plane ride, I was like, hey, like, I don't have anywhere to live. Do you have any recommendations on where to look? Do you have any friends that are renting their spots? And she's like, no, you can come live with us. And I just met her on the plane and she's like, you can come live with our family. And I'm like, oh no, like you've got 3 kids, like you've got young twins. Like, I don't know if that's like, I don't even know you, you don't really know me at all. And she's like, just come check out the house and we'll go from there. And I was like, okay,
Wow.
yeah. And so I went and I drove up there the next day and I lived there for the next 3 years
No
with this
way.
family. Yeah.
With that family. Wow.
Yeah.
And you were, obviously out of college by that point, right?
Well, so I had my year at UH where I
Yeah.
finished up my baseball career. And then after that, there was no part of me that wanted to go back to the mainland. So I got a job um, working up corporate finance. I finished up my master's degree at UH and had a great opportunity for a hotel chain that allowed me to surf every single day before or after or during work sometimes. And I had this really quiet, nice life with not much going on. And I thought it was great for a little bit until I started getting involved in youth ministry at my church. I was in junior high and I had a student actually who like was a baseball player. And I just saw the way that he was like chasing after his dreams and using his talents that God had given him. And he had this vision for like how he wanted to use it to like go play for UH, like his hometown team, and be a stud and be a draft pick and then like go play in the MLB, but then also like the whole time when he has this platform, like give God the glory and
Mm.
remind people that he has these talents and these abilities because it was God given. And I saw this kid, like this seventh grader doing this, and I'm like, oh, like I don't think I did this as well as he's doing it right now. Like, I don't know if I used my gifts, like my God-given ability as best as I could have. And it stung really bad. And I'm like, oh, like I might have really messed this up by not, going pro or like I don't want to say like work any harder because I've no regrets on that end, but I was like, I don't know if I use my abilities as best as I could have because the seventh grade kid is like rocking my world right now. And so that kind of started like the chain reaction of like God opening up door after door after door to like kind of impossibly put me on the bananas. And I can talk about that if you want to, but I feel like I've talked kind of a lot and I don't want to, take up all your time and just ramble and ramble. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're in the corporate track, you're surfing, going out for lunch, catching some waves, coming
Yeah.
back with some messy hair, back to the office. I
Oh
guess
yeah.
out in Hawaii when you're near the beach and the like that's just normal, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here in the Midwest, when you
A
go
little
into the
different.
office. People don't do that anymore. It's all work from home. But
Well, we
but
got to get you out sometime and change that. You know,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So like by you, it sounds like kind of volunteering a little bit. You were in a spot to run into this seventh grader.
yeah. So he was one of my students. Every Sunday, um, teaching like junior high Sunday school, and it
Okay,
was
so this was a Sunday school. Got it.
yeah, yeah. So like got plugged into this amazing church, pretty far from where I lived, but just met some of my best friends in the world. Like got you know plugged into a discipleship group, got mentored, and just it was like my community. And so I just wanted to start serving, and we had this just like these amazing people who were kind of like directing me towards junior high, just because there weren't too many men in that ministry was kind of one of the main reasons. But a lot of them were athletes, and obviously they knew I played college sports at UH. So it was like a good kind of connecting point. So that's kind of how I ended up in junior high and met some of my best friends in the world. And yeah, I mean, looking forward to joining the ministry again, whenever my bananas career ends. I'll say that.
So one of the things that you said right there is not enough men in certain areas. So,
Mm,
so guys, take that and where can you contribute? Where can you, show up and help guide somebody, lead a group, just be an influence. So if you're, living the way that Andy's trying to live, inspired by a seventh grader. So on one hand, we can learn from seventh graders. On the other hand, we can
amen.
influence for the good also. So one of the reasons why I coach the softball team, of course, my daughters play on both of the teams that I coach. Um, but one of the big reasons is they're daughters, they're girls, they're, gonna be teenagers. Some of the girls on my oldest team are now teenagers. And it's like, I wanted to
Mm,
take them from when they were young and help give them confidence and have kind of male authority figures around that we're living life for the good and kind of sharing good virtues with the girls and helping build their confidence and preparing them for when they're teenagers. And from the time I got them at 7, 8 years old, I'm like, hey, down the road, life's going to be harder and we're going to do some hard things together so that you're more prepared for what's to come. What's to come,
dude,
coach? You'll figure it out.
dude, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And like I said, like the one of the main reasons I joined middle school ministry is because I just wanted to serve and I don't really know where. But the reason changed when I got involved and I saw kids at just this like really impressionable age range being poured into by just filth from so many different
Oh my
sources.
gosh. Yeah.
And whether that was like school or social media or TikTok or whatever it may be, you've got these kids with access to all this confusion. Um, that was unbelievable. And it was like we had this major responsibility in the middle school ministry to like cover these kids in truth, and prepare them, like you said, like for what's down the road. And yeah, like it was insane hearing what some of our kids were learning or being told, taught in school and social media at such young ages. That's a separate conversation, but like when I walked away like from the ministry of Join the Bananas, that was one thing that always stuck with me. Is like what is going on in that age group right now.
So I'm glad you brought that point up. I just had Kirk Cameron on a couple weeks ago, had Trent, he runs the Brave Books group. What they talked about a lot was grabbing kids' imagination and bringing them into stories and things that excite them.
Mm,
So, all these things that can influence kids, if we can encourage them and help direct them into like really cool, wholesome things, things to build values, characters, such as like literally Banana Ball. It's super fun. It's family friendly. It's like and YouTube videos are everywhere. So when I say your kids probably know who these guys are, if they check out YouTube at all, they've probably experienced Banana Ball.
yeah, no, I thank you so much for saying that. I agree. Banana Ball is great. Like I said, myself and so many of my teammates were motivated by having an impact on that generation, like of the next generation of athletes and baseball players. And yeah, it's a great way to reach them. Like if these kids like being able to use sports as like a bridge and like being able to bridge that gap between like my age group and like the next generation. It's so cool because we can connect over it, like loving to compete, loving being with our teammates, and just that daily grind of taking ground balls and being at the field. It is the best. And it's the best when you're 10 years old. It's the best when you're 27 years old. And yeah, it's a great way for us to yeah, just use this platform like to make a big impact the right way. You said that way better than I did, so I won't, go on too much. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I've got the older team I've got there. It's an interesting crossroads being in that preteen and teenage years.
Oh yeah.
And every year I struggle to have just enough girls to fill the team.
Mm.
Every year, like something happens and some go play a different sport or whatever it is. This year, it happened the opposite way. I got more girls than I can put together a team with. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And it's like, it's the some girls go select, some girls drop out, and it's that time
Mm.
where kids get away from sports, and maybe some of the girls that got away from, in this particular case, softball, the dads were the coaches. So there's not enough coaches anymore for the amount of girls that want to play softball.
Oh, I see.
At least that's, my little insulated world of why I have more this year than before. It's because all these other teams folded or, went different directions and things like that, which, softball's a little bit different than baseball because you got two age group years together
Mm.
and baseball's got one, you know. So
Yeah,
at,
well,
le-
I'm
at
sure
least
that's
in
a
our
very I'm sure that's a very humble analysis. I know like my dad, he never played baseball, but he coached some of my teams growing up, and he always talked about his goal was for every single player to come back to the team the next year. And so for you to say that this year you've got more players than you know what to do with, I'm sure that's indicative of you doing a great job and making sure that these girls are in an environment where they can have fun and compete. They're not worried about too much other than that. And I think when you do that, some of the fruit is going to be yeah, so many girls coming back and trying to play. So I'm sure that's a very humble way of you saying that you're an amazing coach, and yeah, you're not fooling me. You're not sneaking anything over here.
so for guys that do coach teams or maybe have opportunities to coach or any of those type of things, right when I took over, I took over a midseason one year for a guy who got the coach got injured so much so that he couldn't coach anymore. Like it was not good. And emergency me, assistant coach and another assistant coach, I stepped up to head coach. And so, what do you do when you don't know what you're doing? One of the things I do is I reach out for help. So I called my buddy who's been a lifelong coach and player and everything. And I'm like, hey, man, what do I need to know? And he goes, number one, have fun.
Mm.
And maybe instead of your measurements being whatever they might be, maybe your measurement is how many girls come back and play again. And how can you keep that going? And so I was glad that he told me that right away because I really didn't have any thoughts of what I wanted to
Yeah,
accomplish
yeah,
other
yeah.
than character building. I knew that was a key thing. But he's like,
Mm.
make for sure whatever you're doing, bottom line is you have fun a lot.
Yeah, that's so good. So, like getting into coaching, was that kind of like God kind of dropped that one on your lap, or was there like more prayer kind of thought that went into it? I would love to hear kind of how you got into coaching.
Yeah, so playing baseball is one thing growing up. And back when I was a kid, playing baseball was more like you show up on practice day and then you show up on
Oh,
game day. And the
yeah.
coaches really didn't do a lot of coaching. It was
Hmm.
swing hard, Danny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Back in the days when you yelled at, like, legitimately yelled at umpires and,
Yeah. Oh, the good old days, right?
super craziness way back then. And these days it is so, so different. Yeah. There was a girl coaching in or a referee in indoor yesterday, and she's like doing this thing like she was texting while she's refing the game, and she's the only
Oh
one.
my, no.
And I go, "Hey, ref, we're playing a game here," and she came over, threatened to throw me out of the game for being
Oh my
disrespectful.
gosh. Yeah, I want to. I mean, well, it sounds like you handled that situation well. I know some people who might have, said some different words there if they saw a referee
Yeah,
texting.
I asked the other
That's
coach, and he's like,
crazy.
"Man, I don't know what you do in that situation." He goes, and she continued to do it for the rest of the game.
Oh,
It's a different story, but yeah, things have gone from one direction to a wholly different direction. Whereas the head coach,
that's
you can't
unbelievable.
even express, "Hey, what's going on?" Why can't we,
Yeah. Well, on the
pay it?
bananas, you don't have to worry about the umpire texting as much as you have to worry about him like dancing and not watching the strike zone. So same, only different, I guess.
How is that in banana ball? Like ball strikes, like a non-factor? Like, of course it matters, but as a pitcher, do you get angry or?
I'll say this. No, like I will say one of my strong suits, like an honest reflection is just, some body language stuff. I think just rolling with the flow and just understanding what we're trying to do, take my ego out of it. But there, I'll say this, like in baseball, like, like for every screamer line drive that gets caught, there's going to be like a swinging bunt base hit. And so I think about it like that. Whenever there's a missed call or like a missed strike, I just put that one in the bucket. And whenever I'm given a strike, it's really probably a ball or like a call goes my way, I take one out of the bucket. So I just try to think like, hey, it's just a bank. You make deposits, you make withdrawals, and you like to think over the course of the season, everything kind of evens out. So I'll try and just stick with that mentality as long as I can.
Yeah, yeah, that works good. What type things do you guys like, or you, or does the team, or fun? So something that people can miss out on is having fun.
Yeah.
And sometimes you actually have to plan for fun, depending on what the activity is or how stressed you are or whatever the scenario is. But can you speak on fun just a little bit?
Yeah, like for me, like I love dancing. I'm like I consider myself at this point like above average, but like when I joined, like significantly below average. But what you said about planning for fun is really good because some of the best pieces that we do are these kind of big choreographed, like everyone synced up dance pieces. And obviously there's more that we do than just dancing. Like, we have so much fun, like you mentioned with the trick plays and like the high level competition. But I remember like for me, there was this one moment that really stuck out. And there was this documentary that came out last year about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, yes.
So I never saw it, but apparently there's like this big
I've
thunderstruck
seen it
dance.
on Netflix or whatever it was, and it says, but I've never clicked watch.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we're about the same spot.
Yes. So I guess there was this big thunderstruck dance routine that kind of took over the internet by storm or whatever. And I remember showing up to practice on a Monday, and they're like, Andy, by the way, like this weekend you'll be doing this thunderstruck dance routine, Dallas Cowboy, and I'm like, I'm at, I'm 6'5", 230 pounds, and I'm like, I can't move like that. Like, how are you supposed to? So I'm just practicing all week. I'm super like, oh, like, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do this? And I'm thinking about dancing, and I'm not thinking about pitching. So I take the mound, and I can't miss a spot. Like I'm throwing everything for a strike. I'm throwing my changeup both sides of the plate because I'm only thinking about the dancing.
Yeah.
And like it's one of the days like you're not worried about the pitching as you are about kind of the entertainment, like the fun piece. So I get up, nail this thing,
No way.
nail it, throw a strike, drill it, clip goes crazy, viral. Like people are like recognizing me in the airport. It's like, oh, you're the guy that did that. I'm like, I was working at a desk a year ago, but like that feeling when you like nail a dance routine, like throw a strike, keep competing, it feels so like satisfying. And yeah, like that piece where you're planning it and you got to execute it is really, really, really fun. Really fun.
We had it's I didn't plan on talking about this, but we had R.A. Dickey on a while ago, Cy
Yeah,
Young
I know.
award-winning pitcher, throws a knuckleball. So you know what often happens when you throw a knuckleball or when people do throw a knuckleball, it ends up at the backstop. So the thing that would embarrass you if your ball made it to the backstop.
Oh, which is a great segue into another story from a little more recent this year. Had another kind of big, choreograph piece that I did and did not execute the strike. And, people had some stuff to say about it online and which is just hilarious, but I mean, just hilarious because yeah, it's people are like, wow, like all that just to throw a ball or something like that. I'm like, my heart is pounding. I'm trying to throw a strike. Like thinking about this dance, just hilarious, hilarious stuff.
Yeah, so in his case, he had this big, huge, crazy story, and he almost drowned in the Missouri River, I believe it was. Came out of it, and the coach made him pitch that night because he knew what stupid thing Ari had done earlier that day. He
Hmm.
goes, I got to the mound and I didn't care. Like I was throwing
Wow.
this knuckleball and
I
I
hadn't
didn't
heard this story.
care. Yeah. He says, So the ball hit the backstop or it didn't hit, like I didn't care. I wholly focused on the 100 things I could control before the ball left my fingertips. And then after it left my fingertips, I didn't care.
Mm.
Whatever happened, happened. It didn't matter. And then he went on to win the minor league Cy Young. And then he went on later to win the major league Cy Young. But he's like, because of that moment where I literally should have died in the Missouri River and didn't, God saved him. He came out of that like a wholly different person.
Wow.
And and then he won the Cy Young, and his words were, I could have cared less about winning the Cy Young. It's like,
Wow.
no
That
way.
perspective is insane.
And I understood what he was saying. He was saying, I was my whole life a baseball pitcher, and that was my identity. And then when I fully gave my life to Christ, because this winning Cy Young was just a thing. It wasn't the end all and be
Yeah.
all of life. Like it was just part of life. And after
Yeah.
he had it for a little bit, he's like, actually, I can appreciate winning the Cy Young because now that allows me to talk to people. People approach me and I get to share Jesus Christ with them. Like it's the greatest. Like
That's so cool. I hadn't
something I
heard
want to
that
do
story.
is, spread the gospel. The Cy Young Award helps me do that at a bigger level.
Wow. That's so cool.
So kind of like what you were talking about. You step into the bananas and you're like, hey, this is really cool, and I can do this better and better and bigger and that type of thing. You've got YouTube videos talking about that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And like I think one of the best parts, I think for me, like my favorite part of being on the bananas is like being surrounded with godly men. Like there are so many solid men, just like extremely high character in our locker room that I get to be with every day. And I even have a teammate, Robert Anthony Cruz, who can like read and write Greek and Hebrew. So when we have our
Oh
team
my
Bible
gosh.
study, this guy is like, oh, actually, like when John 1:1, like talking about the word, like it's actually this Greek word logos. Here's actually what logos, and you're like, what? Like this guy's insane. So um we like so many of my teammates like just have amazing phase of their own. So when we come together and we all read the Bible together, like the way it speaks to all of us differently, when we all come together and share that, it's so inspiring to me. And yeah, like I said, like one of my favorite, probably my favorite part of being on the bananas is just like the men that I'm surrounded with every day. So cool.
So that's a big part of life, guys. You hear me talk about being solo, and that's a big problem. So as you get older in life and opportunities aren't, given to you, because being on a baseball team, you're around guys all the time. When you get the desk job and you get a wife and kids, and guys tend to be solo and not have that community and everything. So
Yeah.
don't take that one for granted. If you're looking
Hmm.
looking for a guy friend, looking for a group, put some effort into that. Put some effort into that. I've said before, F3, it's an outdoor workout group, uh, fitness, fellowship, and faith. Like right there, it's free. It's all
Perfect.
around the world. So there's a cheat code for, being able to find some guys that you'll get along with. Great group. When you're in Hawaii, you got the team, of course, but you're living with a family. Do you ever get a little isolated there where you felt, you know, what's this next step, or
Oh
how do I
yeah.
how do I build this community? Or
Yes and no. I think like I definitely went through for sure some of that in a little bit of time right after I graduated. Just because I had
that
this,
was horrible for me when I graduated college. I don't want to say I was the coolest kid on the block, but I was good in the major that I was in, and I had a sports broadcasting thing, and I was on the campus TV, and it was kind of cool. And I had,
yeah.
guys all
Oh,
around. And then I went home and lived in my parents' basement. And it was the most isolating, like, can I go get a minimum wage job selling
mm,
clothes at some retail place while I'm looking for the real job?
yeah, yeah.
It was a
No,
tough
dude.
spot. So I can relate when you graduated and in transition.
Yeah. And I think it sounds like you can totally relate. Like when I finished, like, when I graduated, it was my last baseball game. You wake up the next morning and you're like, I'm not a baseball player anymore. And obviously you still have your faith, like my identity, well, was never as a baseball player, but you grieve it, like you miss it so much because like you love baseball and like you love um like playing sports. And so yeah, like what it really took, and doubling down on what you said about like finding men, it really took me kind of getting plugged into a discipleship group to where you know I think maybe got a little more locked in just because like missing that part is, and like being sad and grieving something that you love so much is, it's tough. It really is tough. And that sounds like you can definitely relate.
Yeah, 100%. You're talking about like Bible studies. So Adam Wainwright was a cardinal, and Kyle McClellan was a cardinal. Adam led a Bible study, and
Hmm.
then Kyle had a series of events that ended him up with a minor league AA team for Texas. And he was in the clubhouse, and they're like, "Hey, Kyle, why don't you start a Bible study?" He's like, "Okay, I will." And I was like, "Weren't you nervous or anxious?" Or he goes, "No, I saw Adam do it for years, so I just did the same thing Adam did." Like I was
Wow, that's
like,
so cool.
yeah, so like he was ready for that. But
Yeah, I was gonna say that is like the whole, you look at like what Jesus did with like the 12 and like walking super close with 12. And like I'm sure Wayno, what he was doing with those guys was like I'm sure he saw all of those guys in his group one day leading groups of their own. And we talk about that all the time now because Banana Ball, it's getting bigger, it's expanding.
it's
And when we talk
huge.
about our circle of guys that are in the Bible study, it's like we're gonna be in different rooms one day, and there are guys, who aren't in the circle yet that are gonna be later in the year, and we're going to be branching off playing in a league next year. And it's like there are going to be leaders to emerge from this group. Maybe you've never led before, but you're going to be asked to one day in this group, among our peers. So yeah, like just kind of this whole process of sanctification and discipleship so that we can each have discipleship groups of our own one day. And then, those people go and have groups of their own. And yeah, exactly
So for
what.
anybody that's seen Wayno out there, seen his public persona or his private persona, he's the same guy either place. When I say Wayno, Adam Wainwright, for those that didn't catch the short code there, uh, listening to Andy Archer, like these guys are fun guys. So, are they going to go into a Bible study and it's going to be boring and classroom like and studious, or is it something where you do life with these other guys that's in it?
Mm.
You want to share just a minute on to whatever on just community and Bible study or biblical based activities around groups of guys?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to kind of condense things down just in 1 minute, but I really just like think about like our core group of guys on this team of believers and just the conversations that we have, not just in Bible study, but like you said, like in the bus, before practice, during a game, and just the way that these guys are prayerfully going about their lives and their days is it's so inspiring to me. Um, And I think one of the biggest things that we pray for all the time is that humility piece. Just because we've got cameras on us at all time. A lot of us, a lot of my teammates have massive, massive followings on social media. And I think that more than anything else, we just want to live these humble lives that look like Jesus. And I think it can be hard sometimes. And so we just really double down on praying for humility all the time because we never want it to be about us because we know that God could take us out of this at any moment. We could blow out our knee tomorrow. Me personally, like I said, like God opened so many crazy doors for me to be here in the first place. Um, how can I humbly use this platform as well as I possibly can to point people towards Jesus? And so I think that's, that humility piece, I think is like one thing that we talk about all the time.
So I've heard people ask, hey, Savannah Bananas, is that a Christian organization? Is that, how faith based is it? And so I don't know how you would answer that.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a secular organization. But with so much like service and like honestly like Christ like principles kind of mixed in. Like I think like more than anything else, like what makes the bananas different is that we put others before ourselves. Um, I think at the crux of it, that might be the best way to describe what we do, what makes us special. And I think just having the Jesus piece as part of my story, I think quite honestly makes me a little more effective, like that extra level of motivation, the reason why, and not just getting kind of mundane or going through the motions or whatnot. Because truly, like it is an amazing opportunity to serve other people, truly. Um, and again, it goes kind of back to my teammates being so cool, like always watching those guys be amazing and drawing so much inspiration and motivated by what they're doing as well. So yeah, I could talk about that for a long time, but really like I would say that, yes, secular organization, but we specialize in serving others. So that part's really, really cool.
That's great. Obviously, Jesus focused on serving others. Uh, I've noticed in my life when I'm focused on serving others, I'm a happier guy. When I'm focused on what can I get and how can I thrive and what about me and in my marriage when it's about me and not about serve my family, serve my wife. Of course, I
Mm.
still, do the things I want to do and, stay happy. But when I'm me focused and not God focused, not family focused, friend focused, or other people focused, you turn into kind of a selfish jerk a little bit, or at least I do. So,
Oh, same, dude. And the hard part is how quickly that can happen. Um,
yeah,
and
it could be just
so
a couple of minutes and you're, all of a sudden you're into this different headspace.
absolutely. Oh, you're preaching to the choir, my friend. So, but yeah. And so, but again, like that point you made about getting in a group, like that's such like a cheat code for like success is like having the dudes around you and the men who are going to, keep you accountable and then give you a great example of what a Christ-led life looks like.
You brought up humility a few times, and that one is a huge, huge, huge key to just life in general because when you're prideful and ego gets in the way of seeing all kinds of things, including
Yeah.
major sin in your life.
Mm.
So out there on the field where I think you're going to have over 2 million people come and watch you live and in person, not to mention the millions of YouTube views every day that the team gets. In addition, the Instagram, by the way, you got a really cool Instagram channel. So guys, check out Andy
Thank
Archer
you.
on
I appreciate
Instagram.
that.
And um, like that can really, really magnify the ego. So without keeping that in mind of, let me stay rooted in humility, rooted in Christ, identity rooted somewhere other than, the spotlight. I even have this isn't I have a bit of a tough time like self-promoting the podcast, this
Mm.
podcast. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about me, it's about, helping guys grow in their journey and be better dads, be better people, husbands. But yeah, in your spot, like you got millions watching, and that can really, really
Oh,
jack the ego up.
dude. And like with that, honestly, comes like some imposter syndrome a little bit too. Like talking about like using this platform to like share our faith and point people to Jesus. Like sometimes I feel unqualified and like sometimes like too dirty in some ways to even like use my social media to point people to Jesus. And I'm like, Jesus is the whole reason I'm here in the first place. And it's just crazy that like sometimes I let like those lies like seep in and be like, no, 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 you're not pure enough or clean enough to like actually, you know, put this on your story or post about this or talk about this or like have these conversations in person.
So how do you get past that when you feel like you're a dirty person or whatever
Yeah,
to
like I
to
think for
push through
me,
it?
like it's just kind of like getting over my ego and like, going straight to the word whenever I feel like that, like recover myself in truth. Just because if I sit in that cycle, like it's gonna tear me apart. And I never want to feel like, you know, of course it's a lie to be like it's too dirty to start praying or like go back into your word. Like even if you stepped into some sin, it's like how 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 much can your ego get in the way of you actually just running back to the Father and getting over yourself and like
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
God
and
forgive
so
me. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm
And
just a dumb
yes,
human.
yes. And that could those words like I'm sorry, like please forgive me are some of my hardest words sometimes, truly. Um
Yeah.
and yeah, dude, I don't know.
To
I
other
feel like that could
humans
be a
and to
whole nother
God.
podcast too.
Yeah, yeah. So we keep teasing the how you got to the Savannah Bananas. Lay it on us.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'll pick it up here. So I have these feelings of like, oh, like, you know, I I didn't do as best as I could have done. That's really what it came down to is I had this pit in my feeling like I knew I didn't use my gifts as well as I could have. And that kind of started this like chain reaction of like people started praying over me like you're gonna play baseball
Whoa.
again, my mentor, and I'm like, there's no way I play baseball again. And people are praying it anyway over me. I'm like, there's no way. My parents go to a Savannah Bananas game kind of right around that time, and they're like, Andy, like, have you heard about this? And I was like, no, like, what is even going on? I hadn't really pitched in like 2 years. And on top of that, I was getting a left labrum surgery, like a major reconstructive shoulder surgery. It was my second one of the year from an injury I got in college and a botched surgery to fix it initially. So I'm like injured, like about to get surgery, and I'm like, I'm just gonna send in an application and see what happens. So I hired my little sister's roommate, paid her $100 to edit this video of all my craziest college highlights and media, whatever, put it all together, send it in. And then all of a sudden it's like, the Bananas reach back out and they're like, hey, like all of our tryouts have come and gone already. Can you come in for a tryout? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't I haven't touched a baseball. Like I'm getting surgery like literally tomorrow. I don't know what to do. I remember the first time I spoke on the phone with the organization, I think I was like high on like oxycodone or something like that. And I don't even know what I said, but I guess it was good enough to like give me a tryout. And so I think because I surfed every day and like my shoulders, they got strong again. And I remember like a month out of like this labrum surgery, I'm on the mound in Savannah, Georgia, pitching in front of the organization, going for a spot on the third expansion team. And I'm throwing 92 miles an hour after not pitching in 2 years. And I'm wearing board shorts, like surfing like shorts, a button down shirt and a tie. And I'm indoors. And again, it was like this situation where they had the roster set on the Bananas. Someone got injured, had to back out of their contract. Roster spot open for a pitcher. You know, God opened a door for me to join the Savannah Bananas, and then here we are.
So they're putting you on an expansion team, maybe.
Yeah, that was what I was initially hoping for, was to be put on one of those teams.
Wow,
And
that's
then yeah,
incredible.
God just opened crazy doors and said, no, 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 I'm gonna put you here. You're not doing this for yourself. It's actually me doing it. So don't get that confused. But yeah, insane.
You want to hype up a couple of your teammates or whoever? Like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Hopefully you got an extra 2 hours for me to do that. I think like I'll tell you about three guys. So first, this guy, Robert Anthony Cruz. So he's my teammate who he can read and write Hebrew and Greek. He went to Biola. The wisdom that he speaks with, okay, and not just talking about the Bible, but just the way he talks about life and his marriage and just the way he does everything is so inspiring. I think like when I think about him, I just think wisdom. That's the first word. One of the wisest, most godly men I've ever met in my whole life. Another guy, Dr. Meadows. So he's our center fielder, backflipping center fielder. The most humble man I think I've ever met in my whole life. He just got married this past offseason. Was honored to fly 10 hours direct, from Hawaii to Savannah to watch him get married and then take another flight back like 6 hours later. But the way that he has quite honestly like changed his life by faith, from where he was when he joined the organization to now in this like Christ-filled marriage. Even like
Wow.
leading our team Bible study last week, he led it,
Wow.
dominating, and you're just watching this guy like this like perfect, like just so good example of humility. Like we talked about it. This guy is like the embodiment. He's like greatest dude ever. Another guy is like Bill Leroy. He's like another like when Bill talks about the Bible, like the revelations he gets is incredible. Like the way that like God speaks to him through scripture, we all glean from it. And so we're going through John right now. And when Bill led a few weeks ago, it was like one of the most insightful, profound readings and just interpretations of John that I've ever like. I looked at it from a whole new perspective because of the way that Bill taught it. And so I could go on for hours about those guys and all my other teammates as well. I unfortunately don't have the time to
Yeah.
do that.
Yes.
But if
Yes.
I could, yeah, I mean, just use this time to highlight those three guys. Um, some of the greatest men and role models I've ever gotten to be around in my whole life. And they're my teammates. It's the best part.
So years ago, I went to check out Savannah Bananas and I went to go buy tickets. My wife, who isn't a big baseball fan, is like, we got to go to Savannah and go watch them play. And
Oh,
scalp tickets were like $350 a piece.
mhm.
And I'm like, what the heck else are we going to do outside of Savannah, Georgia? So we ended up not going. And now
Oh,
you guys are coming through St. Louis in about a month.
yeah, dude. You guys got tickets?
We don't. We're dying for tickets.
Okay, okay. We might have to edit this part out. I don't know, like for sure where I'm at. I get four per game. I don't know if
Okay.
I got family coming, but I we definitely need to make something happen there.
That would be awesome. That would
Yeah.
be awesome. So, guys, I'm saying this because these guys are going all across the country. They're on tour this year. And so they might be coming somewhere near you. You might not have to travel 8 hours one way and pay 350 bucks a
Yeah.
ticket.
Oh yeah.
They sold out St. Louis Stadium, Busch Stadium, which is 45,000 seats for 2 nights. And for every 10 people that I personally know that got into the lottery system, one person won the privilege to buy 4 tickets.
Yeah.
That's how crazy popular this banana ball thing is. So my non-baseball fan wife says, let's drive 8 hours one way, pay 350 bucks a ticket to go watch these guys play. Like that's how crazy this thing is. So uh besides that, there's great guys like Andy Archer and we didn't even talk about the quill that you wear onto the field sometimes with
Oh, yeah.
literally arrows in the back of it and stab them in the ground when you strike somebody out.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know what? You gotta be undeniable, and no one else is pitching with a quiver on their back. So I guess it made sense of my last name.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And then, of course, in our family, we like some taller guy than you, some guy named Kyle Lewigs.
Oh yeah. And if and what that dude, one of my favorite teammates of all time as well.
Totally crazy. We were watching some highlight random and he spins and, the pitcher turns to throw the ball. And when he spun, the camera caught his last name, Bigger Than Life. And we're
Yeah,
like, whoa, nobody's got our last name in the United States. There's only a few of
dude.
us.
I was gonna say, now that we're talking about him, like having this conversation with you, you and Kyle would get along fantastically.
Awesome.
Oh,
Well,
you
hook us
guys
up.
would be buddies, that's for sure.
That would be great. Well, we're ready to be your caddies. We're ready to carry balls. We're ready to, do whatever. We'll put the kerosene on things. We'll light it. Whatever
That's
y'all need
beautiful.
us to do here in St. Louis, we'll do it.
That's beautiful. Well, yeah, we got to make it happen and we got to make sure that we get you guys to the park, you and the family, and get the daughters out, and they'll have a good time too, no doubt about it.
Can you throw a challenge out to the guys real quick? Something they can do to maybe become a better person? It could be something simple or it could be a little harder, but something they can do between this episode and the next episode, some type of challenge.
Ooh, good question. I think like the cliche one is like read your Bible every day, but I think like I want to go a step further and be like, have a conversation with one of your guy friends and be like, hey, like, can we meet up and read some John or read something together? Um, just going off of like this conversation we've had about being in a group and like getting so much from hearing, how God speaks to the men around us and like the same passages that we read. And like,
Oh
Dan,
my
like you and I
gosh.
could read like the same thing and like you could get this out of it. I could get, something completely
Yes.
different. And just like having that conversation about it like changes so much. And so yeah, the challenge is like have a conversation with buddy, read it, have you guys both read the same chapters and be like, what'd you get out of it?
Yes, yes. I love that challenge. That is an awesome, awesome, awesome challenge. So, well, we appreciate you having you on, Andy. This was so cool.
Oh, dude, so fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
I get excited about having guests on, but I was so fired up to have you on today and just couldn't wait.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Well, total pleasure. Thank you for the great questions. And hopefully I didn't talk too much rambling. So thank you very
No,
much.
you were fantastic. You were fantastic. So, guys, thanks for listening and catch us next week. Throw us some reviews and all that stuff on all the different channels and see you guys next week.
Awesome. Thank